Welcome back to the Go on the Match podcast. Today I'm joined by Oscar of Leeds Fan TV. Oscar is a match-going Leeds United fan and is one of the hosts of Leeds Fan TV. Oscar, thanks for giving me your time today, mate, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
No problem at all, mate. Absolute pleasure to join you.
Okay, so match-going Leeds fan. Where were you born and how did your love for Leeds United begin?
Well, I was born in Southport. It's a long story, really. I started supporting Leeds, basically through my dad and partly through my granddad as well. Basically, it's back in the glory days of Leeds United, back in the Don Revie era. So we're going to sort of like the mid-60s, late 60s. And a goalkeeper called Gary Sprake it became pen pals with my dad, actually. So it's kind of come from there. My dad started supporting us during the glory era. I kind of started supporting Leeds on the back of the David O'Leary era. So around 2002 time. So it's kind of like when it kind of started to go back, just down basically from there. So pretty much from the minute I became a Leeds fan, we went into the Championship, then into League One, then just couldn't get out of League One. And it just kind of, it felt like it was never ending, to be fair, until like the last couple of years, to be honest, Mike.
So you grew up into the bad luck then?
Yeah, to be fair, literally, as soon as I started supporting us, it kind of just went downhill, to be honest. Yeah, just straight away, pretty much.
So can you remember like the first match you went to or anything from your first match day experience?
First game I went to be fair, I remember quite well. It was September, I think it was, 2005. Leeds 3, Brighton 3, I know that much. And yeah, it was just a pretty dramatic game. It was typical Leeds United, really. We went into that game pushing for promotion. Made a quite strong start to the season. Kevin Blackwell was the manager at the time, and we'd started the game, relatively well. From what I can remember, I was in the Cop that day, or what we called the Cop at Leeds, and I went 2 down after, I think, half an hour, I think it was. And Brighton, to be fair, I think got relegated that season, and we're pretty much like, I don't think they've got a point all season so far. So we're 2 down. It was kind of like typical Leeds kind of stuff. I just remember, I think I was only 10. I think I was 9, actually. Yeah, I'd been 9 when the game was going on. And just remember the language and just swearing. But it was good, to be fair, mate. It was good.
So, yeah, obviously as a kid going then, any special memories as going as a kid?
I mean, from the first kind of few times, I didn't really go as much as I do now. Probably only really went to probably about 8 or 9 home games a season to start with the first couple of years. Probably went to more away games, to be honest, to start with, because obviously being from Southport, Leeds were playing in the northwest quite a lot. So you had, when going into the Championship, you had teams like Preston, Burnley, Blackburn, Bolton, Wigan, always popping up on the fixture list. So I went to probably more away games to start off with. And yeah, I think the general memories is that supporting Leeds at the time was quite a difficult time to support Leeds, to be honest. It was just the start of the Ken Bates era. So, the prices were absolutely insane. The ground was half full kind of thing, because there was so much discontent towards the board. And it was a difficult time, to be honest, Mike. It was but in terms of specific memories, I guess always trying to kind of get in there quite early for games and kind of watching the warm-ups and bits and pieces, seeing it kind of build up. And that's probably the biggest thing from the first kind of early years, to be honest. Yeah.
That's quite unique in that sense, really, that, when you start going to games, going to your away games more than you do the home, obviously it's usually the other way around. So
definitely.
Do you think that maybe like increased your passion and love for Leeds? Because obviously you've got they've got a great following, Leeds, but obviously you get more of your diehards going to the away games. Do you think that probably helped you become more of a Leeds fan?
Yeah, I think so. I think once you kind of once you become a fan of any club, you're for life. But I think it really ignited the fire, if you like, going to the away games early on. I think it was quite a while till I saw Leeds win the first game, to be honest. I think it was, if I remember right, the first season sort of started going was 05-06. We actually made the playoff final at the end of that season, got hammered by Watford in Cardiff. But I think, to be fair, I was a bit of a jinx. And I think if we said early on, there's a bit of a jinx for the club, to be fair, at first, because I think it's probably 7th or 8th time of going until I saw our first win, to be honest. And yeah, but it was some fantastic early memories watching Leeds away from home. I think Preston away in the playoff semi-final to get us to, it was the Millennium Stadium at the time. It wasn't even Wembley. It was when Wembley's been constructed, kind of thing. And that does make me feel old, to be honest. It really does when you look back at it like that. And yeah, away from home was probably where more of the memories were, to be honest, Mike. think at home, it took a while to really get going under Bates. I think it was only really when we went into League One and started winning games on quite a regular basis when it really started to feel like anything at home, to be honest. But you know, it was a unique one really in that sense, Mike, because I think a lot of people, if you ask probably 95% of Leeds fans, their main love of Leeds comes from going to Welland Road for the first time. And don't get me wrong, I still get goosebumps every single time I go to the ground. But
Yeah.
for me, it was that away from home, the diehards, and kind of it was us against them kind of thing. And it's not so much us against the team we were playing or us against the Football League. It was more at the time us against the board and even the managers to an extent. You know, we had Dennis Wise in charge at times, and it seems absolutely ridiculous. It's like almost makes as much sense as having Roy Keane managing Liverpool or something like that, or Stephen Gerrard managing Man United. You know, it made no sense. We hated Dennis Wise. There's no other word for it, and I still do now. You know, it was a bizarre one, and that was what it felt like. It was, and even the players to an extent, there was quite a lot of players there who just didn't seem bothered, kind of 35, 36 and over, and kind of like over the hill kind of thing. And it was just a really unique time. And I think what really got me into it was, you know, having that die-hard away support and, you know, some absolutely dire moments. But, you know, it was almost gallows humour to start off with. But, you know, I never kind of lost that belief we'd get back to some kind of normality at some point. I didn't quite think it'd be this long, but, yeah, we've got there eventually.
So did you have any, you know, favourite players or anything growing up? Players that you were looking forward to see?
Well, early on, because again, I didn't really start going to games until 2005. But when I first started watching Leeds, i.e. on TV, etc., first getting into it, I think probably my favourite player was probably Olivier Dacour, who played for Everton, Inter Milan, Roma, I think he went to as well.
Okay.
He played for numerous clubs and was a France international and just a top player in the middle of the park. I think obviously, I know you're a Liverpool fan yourself, Mike, but I've got to mention Mark Viduka. Obviously that 4-3, always kind of brings back very, very early memories for me. And I just kind of do sort of my first memories ever kind of being associated with Leeds was running around singing Viduka kind of thing. And, it was that kind of moment really. And it was those kind of special moments really, to be honest, Mike. And, I'd have to say those two would definitely be up there. Yeah. I think from when I first started going to games, I think Rob Hulse was probably quite a bit of a crowd favourite, someone I really liked. Not really sort of stereotypical kind of Leeds kind of centre forward. He wasn't really like a particular powerhouse as such, to be honest, Mike, but he was... he had a bit of quality to him, to be fair. He was one of those players who really looked up for it. And to be fair, as soon as he went, a lot of our goal threat went. I'd have to mention people like Sean Derry as well. When we first started going to games, he was a proper kind of Leeds player, played in the middle of the park, wore our famous number 4 shirt. I just got stuck in, really. Again, there's a couple of lads from the academy at that time. Matty Kilgallen, he came through the academy. And this is very early days, to be honest. And then from there, it kind of spiraled. And it was at that time, as I said before, Mike, it wasn't really a likable team. Again, it was probably only kind of that 3, 4, 5 kind of players. Vangedi Lewis, David Healy, internationals, again, good players too. But it wasn't really a particularly likable team. It was probably when you had to go into the League One times when you really got the proper kind of club legends to an extent, or club legends for younger kind of supporters, probably from my age and younger. So you talk about people like Jermaine Beckford, Robert Snodgrass, Luciano Becchio, Max Gradle, Johnny House, and all these players went to play Premier League football at some point, and it was a really good time to support the club. And it's quite an interesting one from that point of view. But they'd probably be the early kind of heroes for me. I think it was quite an interesting one. I think obviously Dacour, Viduka. Obviously I've not seen a player of that kind of calibre since really, which is quite a sad thought. But hopefully, maybe in the next couple of years we will see players of that quite calibre coming through the door.
So I've never actually done Leeds away myself. It was on the list to do this season, but obviously COVID's put a stop to that. So can you give us a bit of a briefing as what a standard match day looks like for yourself now when you do go, or, for anyone that hasn't been to Elland Road, what's in and around the ground and what they can expect?
Well, I think obviously, it's quite a unique match experience really, Elland Road. I mean, it's right next to the motorway. It's a bizarre kind of location for a football ground. It's almost, you kind of come out of a housing estate and you're kind of there kind of thing. It's just kind of just at the top of the hill kind of thing. It is quite unique really. And I love that kind of feel to the ground and that lot. But a typical match day. I think obviously Leeds City Centre, if you come off the train, you've got basically a pub literally every 2 seconds, to be honest, up until the ground. And yeah, normally I'd have probably a drink by one of the pubs by the station. So trying to think where, probably the Griffin's probably the one I'd probably go to most. Again, there's a couple around the ground as well. The Peacock's probably the most popular one in and around the ground. It's just behind the south stand, probably where the noisiest sort of element of our stadium at the minute, because the ground's changed quite a lot probably since Liverpool last came to, or any kind of Premier League team came to Ellen Road. It's the whole dynamics of it's changed quite a bit. The away fans are actually in a totally different place to where they were before. Okay. So that'd be normally have a quick drink before the game, and we've got the pavilion as well, which is probably a bit more of a sophisticated place to drink, if you like. Probably a bit less vocal and singing, but again, it's whatever you're into. There's if you want to go a bit further out in Beeston, there's the White Hart as well in Beeston. It's a bit further out, but that's a proper kind of like what is called your diehards kind of pub. It's just there. You're in there and you're just up for it. About 2 hours before the game, you're ready to run like probably 10,000 miles, to be honest, after you come out there. So that's probably normally the early planning. Obviously, the Billy's Bar. I mean, there's so many pubs to mention. It's so you'd always tend to have a drink before the game.
Yeah.
I tend to sit these days in the East Stands, but again, I've got a season ticket this. Well, obviously not now, but last season I had the season tickets. And the last couple of seasons I've had the season ticket, to be fair. So after I've got through Union, bits and pieces like that, and being able to get to games more often, and obviously getting more independent, traveling to games that way. Yeah. So I've done that, but yeah, I tend to have been all around the ground. I've had sat in every single place in the ground, if you like. And probably my favourite part of the ground is probably the Cop. I'm a bit of a traditional in that sense. A lot of younger Leeds fans, younger than me, will kind of say the South Stand. The South Stand is right next to the away supporters now. So as you can imagine, it kind of builds from there. And that's probably where, it's quite interesting from that sense, because a lot of fans used to sit in the Cop like me, but they moved over to the South Stand because, and it's going to sound ageist this to an extent, to be fair, Mike. I don't want to be ageist here at all, but the big thing with Leeds fans, and I don't agree with it. I'm going to say I don't agree with it. I'm just going to emphasise that point. From a lot of South Standers, if you like, speak to, they say the Cop's just full of people who just don't want to sing anymore. Have been there all their lives, but now they don't have that passion to sing anymore. And I don't agree with that, to be fair, Mike. I think it gets a bit of a bad press. I think I remember a game, obviously, when Marcelo Bielsa took over. I've been in the Cop quite a lot early on, and remember our first game against Stoke, and I it was the best I heard the Cop in years, to be fair, and it was fantastic. And in terms of if you want to watch the game from the best seat to watch it from is probably the top tier of the East Stand. I mean, it's just the perfect kind of view. You kind of, it's like watching it on TV kind of thing, but obviously the atmosphere isn't as good kind of thing. It's probably the pricier place to sit. And, but that's where obviously season ticket is at the moment. Because that's the only place where it was available, to be honest. The South Stand and Cop goes quite easily. But yeah, I think obviously, there's little bits and pieces you do for every match day. I think buy a programme, go and see your mates, a bit of everything. I think even now, because it's a team you really like, I do tend to try and get there early and hang around by the team coach. I sound like I'm about 10 years old now, but just hoping for an autograph or something. Just seeing the players. And I think now what's changed a lot, Mike, is that I think obviously being a Liverpool fan yourself, when the bus comes in now, or players come in, or however they get there, some teams just come in by a team bus. Some teams we actually come in by a team bus now, even for the home games. No one travels individually, and it's like a rock band arriving, kind of thing. It's like you just get surrounded, kind of thing. I think almost like that. What I remember probably the best example is probably that Liverpool Man City game. When you just had fans just round both buses and that lot. And it's just like real atmosphere building outside, and obviously Bielsa tends to come out and just acknowledge absolutely everyone. He doesn't care how long it takes; he acknowledges everyone, and yeah, that's obviously a different element. I think that's very different to kind of what it was about 2 or 3 years ago, when I don't think anyone batted an eyelid when the players arrived. To be honest, I think it was more of a case of the players tried to get in there as quick as possible. Get the hoods down and just get into the ground as quickly as possible. To be honest.
I've got to admit, you're talking about the Cop there at Ellen Road. I've never heard of a different, obviously, Cop than what we've got at Anfield. But have you got any background about that with the Cop being called, at Ellen Road? Is that like your main stand?
I mean, it's not got the history of like the real cop, if you like, at Liverpool. I think every club tends to have a part of the ground where they refer to as the cop, and that's probably what it's more down to.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of history to it. I think obviously, it was the kind of place to be, in kind of the 70s and that lot, 70s, 90s. That was where like the atmosphere came from. I think there's some very, very famous, like certainly from what I look back on the cop.
Yeah.
I'm too young to remember these kind of years, but it's almost like before obviously had all seaters and that lot. It was almost a bit like, probably the best example in terms of to the younger would be a bit like the yellow wall at Dortmund kind of thing. I'm not going to compare it to that. I think that's just like a completely unique, but in terms of just being so imposing to look at kind of thing, obviously a lot of the opposition players refer to it as that, when you're kind of kicking towards it or a goalkeeper behind that stand, it's a bit of a nightmare. But I wouldn't say it's not the main stand per se. I think the main stand now is kind of the south stand in terms of atmosphere. That's where it really gets bouncing these days. And yeah, I think obviously there's been talk of being quite a bit of redevelopment on it in the future, because the Cop, there's quite a lot of space behind it, and whether that's going to happen, I don't know. But yeah, I think obviously in my early Leeds days, that's where I tended to go, and that was the place to be. And it's quite interesting how things change, from place to place. And a lot of the Cop old boys have kind of moved to the south stand, as I said, completely the opposite side of the ground, closer to the away fans, and it kind of builds from there a bit more. And we've got the cheese wedge as well, which is if you're looking at the ground, obviously, I'm talking about all these stands, and they're probably not making much sense, but you kind of got the south stand, which is behind one goal, Cop behind the other goal, east stand, which is double tiered, and then the west stand, which is where the cameras are, on games and that lot. And between the east stand and south stand, there's something called the cheese wedge, which is where the away fans used to be located. So again, any Premier League fans listening to this will probably have been in the cheese wedge before, if they've been to Ellen Road. And yeah, to be fair, that is a fantastic decision by the club. It was Simon Grayson, I think, who requested the away fans be moved just to try and build a bit of atmosphere, kind of all around kind of thing behind the goal and that lot. It's quite difficult to explain, without kind of like being there to show you. But the cheese wedge is a bit of a place to be as well. That's I think it holds about 1,500, I think. So as you can imagine, tickets in there are just gold dust, to be honest.
Yeah. So, just touching on the fan base you've got as a whole at Leeds, I don't think anyone could argue that you've got a great following, such a passionate support there. Is that one of the things that you're most proud of as being a Leeds fan? Even through the hard times when you got relegated and, you haven't come up for so many years, that the following, home and away is still great.
Absolutely. I think obviously that was where, as I was saying before, the passion really was there, to be just to watch Leeds, you know what I mean? And early doors, going to more away games than I did home games, you really noticed it. You go into places like Preston on a Tuesday night and you're taking almost half their ground kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you could have taken more if they'd let us have more tickets. And, then obviously get to League One and pretty much every single game. That was where it really kind of hit home, because obviously, I was quite young during the Champions League years on the David O'Leary and kind of those early kind of Premier League years and that lot. And you didn't really take into appreciation just how big we were.
Yeah.
But when you went to like places like Walsall, Crewe, Port Vale, Wickham, grounds like that, Hartlepool, places like that, and you're seeing not only obviously filled the away end, but you're taking half their main stand, half the other side of the ground. And honestly, there was pretty much, I think there was one season where I think it was 60-70% of our games, we took more away fans than the home team did home fans kind of thing. And that kind of sums it up, really. It really was. And, I think obviously you saw how much rival fans disliked us and that lot. And it kind of, that's the thing being a Leeds fan. You kind of live off that kind of thing. You kind of like to be disliked. That's the kind of what's difficult at the moment, because you're listening to so many, the media, etc., speaking so glowingly about us, and we're not used to it, to be fair. It's quite a different kind of feeling, to be honest. But no, honestly, going to places like Walsall Tuesday night, and they're the kind of games that kind of stick in your mind for some reason. You think, woeful games that we might win by one goal or even drop points in, but they really stick in your mind, because you kind of, when you first go there, you think, you know what, I'm only going to go here once or twice. But then when you go in there 3 or 4 times and you're still bringing a bigger following each time you go, and that kind of thing, and the fans aren't turning on the players, even though it could have been quite easy to do that at that time. And that's where the pride comes from. Obviously, Ken Bates, Massimo Cellino, being part of the protests as well, and that's kind of thing, to get to where we are at the minute, Mike, because you're still not where we want to be. We still want to be an established Premier League club. It's only our first season in this league.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of heartache. We've had terrible owners, terrible managers, and there's been a lot of action needs to be taken. I think Bates, 2 or 3 protests for him. Massimo Cellino, 2 or 3 protests for him, and that's what makes you really proud. There's a club that's never stopped fighting. It's a one club city, which makes it quite unique from that sense. I think it's only really Newcastle in terms of the big major cities that I can think of who kind of shares that status with us. And it does make it a bit more different, just give that different edge to it. Because, obviously go to Liverpool. I know Liverpool, the global fan base is absolutely unbelievable. But when you go to Liverpool, I know there's more Liverpool fans than Everton fans, but it's still a bit more kind of like 60-40, 55-45, whatever you want to call it. But at Leeds, it's kind of pretty much all Leeds kind of thing, and from that sense, and it is quite unique. And then when you go abroad and places like that, when you're in League One, you're going abroad, and you're in places like Barcelona or I don't know, in France, and you're wearing your Leeds shirt, and then there's people there like noticing it, kind of thing. Locals and that lot, and saying, "Oh, Leeds," and then you're saying David O'Leary years and Billy Bremner, and things like that, and that kind of really hammers home to you, just how big this club is, and how much it kind of not so much means to people, outside Leeds, because and I know we're a disliked club, but we're a club that's being noticed quite a lot. We're a club that I think that's associated with fighting qualities, not in terms of fan violence, by the way, but yeah, I know we've associated that. I mean, fighting qualities in terms of on the pitch, in terms of, we've had to battle a lot. I've said already about owners, managers, etc., and we've kind of never given up that spirit, kind of thing. And there's been times where we've had a lot of false dawns, but the passion's still been there, even when it's kind of like turned out to be nothing. The belief is still being there, kind of thing, and it's quite unique, really. Obviously, over 16 years, out of the top flights, and pretty much a good 12, 13 of those 16 years doing absolutely nothing. It takes quite a lot that to still have that passion, still get 30, 35,000 people through the door, every single game. It's quite unique, really. And obviously, there's been high points, even in the low points. There's high points. Obviously go on to this one later on, but winning away at Man United in the cup, I never thought I'd ever see us win at Man United again. At that time, and obviously being a League One club, and there's been little things there, just little tiny segments that kind of think that's the potential of this club. You just see little kind of segments of it, and think, wow, that's how big we could get. And now, under Marcelo Bielsa, under this new ownership, we've kind of finally started to put it into practice, and we're kind of seeing really what this club is about. And that's the main thing. I think the big thing for me, Mike, is that the club's connected again with the community. The Leeds Supporters Club has a far, far bigger prestige, I think, at Leeds United now. I think obviously before, I think there's always been fantastic work put into the Supporters Club. But before it got ignored, really, by Ken Bates, Massimo Cellino, but now it kind of feels like we're part of the club again. That's been the big thing, in the last 2 or 3 years. You feel proud. You've always looked forward to going to games, but you feel like you're going to the games to watch the football as well as just being in the atmosphere, if that makes sense. I think it got to a point where, I think there was a time, when we were in the Championship and just doing nothing, being like 13th, 14th in the table, where you kind of just going to the games for the atmosphere. It got to February in that lot, and there's my mates asking me, non-Leeds fans, saying, why are you going all the way to like Ipswich on like a Tuesday night? And saying, atmosphere, mate, kind of thing. And I was thinking to myself, that probably sounds absolutely crazy, but you just don't, it's one of them, when you're just so in it, kind of thing, and just that's the thing, really. And that's still probably the main thing. That it's so easy to just watch games on TV these days, but as soon as we're allowed back in grounds, I'll probably go to more games than I did before. I'll probably go to, I'll probably commit to a lot more away games. I'll certainly still obviously go to every home game, but I think away games wise, I'll certainly, because you miss it that much, you know what I mean? And
Definitely.
you kind of realise how rubbish it is watching it on TV and that lot, and how much you don't really notice, how much you miss it, kind of.
So obviously we're touching on then, like, the community aspect, and you going as a fan, you enjoy it a bit more because there's a better sense of feel of the club, and it's probably very similar to what we've got at Liverpool with Klopp, and I'd probably say a lot of what you're feeling now stems from not just your owners but Bielsa. So you've got him at the helm, and he's probably seen as a god in Leeds now for what he's achieved so far. And obviously he's had a lot of praise in the last year, and you can obviously see that he's obsessed with the game and he's a bit of a student of the game in that sense. But, you know, if you had to put your finger on one thing that you most love about having him as a manager, what would that be and why?
I think the style of football, to be honest, I have to go with that. I think there's a lot of things you could talk about, but I think the style of football has to be the first thing for me, to be honest, Mike. I think it's so different to what you kind of been used to over the last couple of years. I think when you've been used to just see the team just get kind of go through the motions and just get its way through games, or just about nick a 1-0, or try and sit back and get beat and all that lot. But I think now you're just seeing proper football. Playing a clear style of play. Liking to play out the back and have a lot of the ball, threat on the counter attack, and just everything you want to see from a Leeds team. And I think off the ball, we press high, and when you got Ellen Road, an Ellen Road crowd behind you, what you want to see is just work rate before anything. I think that's what I think we get associated with being quite fussy fans, but I think all you want to see really is just work rate. And when you got someone pressing the goalkeeper, or it just gets the crowd up a bit, if you know what I mean, from that sense. And I think it's just a perfect kind of marriage, if you like, between both parties. And I just hope there's a succession plan in place, because one day, unfortunately, Marcelo Bielsa won't longer be Leeds United manager. So, we've got a plan for that, and make sure this isn't just an era, if you like. We just build on it and we just continue to get back to where we want to be. And but I think the other things you obviously have to talk about is that obviously the connection, again, we have as a club, and it's just a pride. When he took the job, you got so many international fans saying how great he is. You got, I was aware of Marcelo Bielsa before he took the job, and then you got people like Pep Guardiola, Mauricio Pochettino talking about a championship manager here. In their press conferences. It just kind of sums up the magnitude. It almost feels like Marcelo Bielsa coming back in makes us feel like a big club to people outside of Leeds again, because I think we lost that respect. I think and rightly so, to be fair, the way the club has been managed, in terms of on the pitch and that lot, and results wise, we did lose a lot of respect. So I think obviously as fans, I think people still, acknowledge we were top quality supporters. But I think obviously Bielsa coming in is just kind of giving us that prestige against the football club. We've got people walking through the door like Rodrigo Moreno, Spain's number 9 at the moment. Like Rafinha, potentially a future Brazilian international. Calvin Phillips, who's just obviously got himself into the England squad. Got a lot of people walking through that door. Mateusz Klich, Polish international. And that's kind of like that level of player that we haven't kind of seen for kind of 15, 16 years, to be fair, mate.
Yeah. So obviously he's got you promoted back into the Premier League. And obviously I've seen a couple of videos of, the party that was around Ellen Road at the time. Obviously knowing that you've got promoted into the Premier League and we've got the COVID situation, so you couldn't go to the games, was that almost like mixed emotions for you? Because I can imagine, the party and, the happiness that you almost have had, and maybe even the relief is probably the better word for it, to get back to where Leeds belong. But then you can't.
I think so, definitely, mate.
Yeah. Was it mixed emotions or?
Well, the main overriding feeling for me at first was relief. I think I still, I won't lie, mate. That Friday night when we got promoted and it didn't even need to play a game was unbelievable. It is probably one of the best days. Well, probably the best day supporting Leeds so far for me in terms of this. Because it's 16 years, being outside the league. I think it would have been like 1 year or 2 years. It'd have been all about the party. But for me, it's just about getting out of this league and just being back in the Premier League and seeing, teams like Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, Man City back on your fixture list kind of thing. It's that kind of sense to it. But look, I think obviously if it could have been there, obviously on the day when we got promoted, it's obviously not being from near Leeds. I wasn't able to go down to Ellen Road and, just have that pretty much all nighter. And then obviously the Saturday, the next day afterwards, there was another party. The Sunday in the middle of Leeds, there was another party. And it was just a shame not being able to get down there. But honestly, mate, I can't lie. It was unbelievable that weekend. That weekend, then obviously winning the title the Wednesday after, unbelievable. I think the only thing was we couldn't really enjoy it that much because the season was starting straight up again.
Straight.
3 or 4 weeks later. So it was kind of thinking, I'll have a summer now, just knowing we're in the Premier League and just being able to chill out and just, and the next thing kind of is looking at your first game back is Liverpool away and you're thinking, oh, blimey, that's a bit of a welcoming back kind of thing. And, I know obviously that game, I know we lost the game, but it did go well for us in the sense of we showed what we were about. But it's just almost like you didn't get a chance to really celebrate it that much because it was kind of like the week later, we're talking about next season already. You know, the transfer window opened straight away, and it was unique, mate. That's the thing. You know, hopefully it's unique. You know, the end of this season won't be affected again. You know, let's hope not. Let's hope we get, you know, the Euros in and all that lot. And yeah, it was quite incredible, really. You know, I think obviously it was just, you know, I think it's impossible to talk about that weekend without talking about the season as a whole, because before lockdown, you know, it was strange, Leeds, because kind of like from January to Feb, we were just in free fall to an extent. And then obviously I remember going to Brentford away, and that was kind of like, obviously it's quite a good game to talk about. It might seem a strange game to talk about. We went into that Brentford game away from home, kind of 10, 12 games of the season to go. I think we were ahead on goal difference at that point.
Right.
Bearing in mind, we had been 11 points clear in December. It was typical Leeds kind of thing. It was kicking in, and we went 1 down in that game. You know, I was been in London a couple of days before the game, and it was a top quality trip. And it was my last away day, to be fair, before lockdown. And
right.
it is my last away day, to be fair, all the way back in February. And I just remember from that game, we went 1 down after 20 minutes. Our goalkeeper, Kiko Garcia, just completely slipped, back pass, and he slipped over. Brentford scores. And I thought at that point, we're going to be in the Championship forever. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, Marcelo Bielsa, I just remember, honestly, I was thinking, this is it. We're going to be in the Championship forever.
Did it feel like that? Like, you know, throughout all
at that point, I always believed in that season, last season, that we were going to go up, until kind of a week before that game, I started to think, you know what? We're not even playing well now, and we're dropping points. You know, there was no sign it was going to turn around, and there was just a fighting spirit. You know, I think obviously the fan base at that time, there was about 2,500 of us. You know, I don't know if you've been to Brentford away. Liverpool probably haven't even played Brentford.
No, I don't think so.
It's an amazing away day, to be fair. I know they've just changed grounds, but it's one of my favourite away days I've been to be fair. It's just because it's such a unique place to go. And I just remember thinking, oh no, freezing cold, Tuesday night, thinking 4.5 hour trip back, straight back in, you know, straight back at it, you know, a couple of days after, and you're thinking, oh blimey, this is just why, what is happening to Leeds here? Yeah, why have I bothered this trip and all that lot? And then kind of that whole away end just kind of just burst into life, kind of thing, kind of thinking, you know what, if we're gonna mess this up, let's mess this up fighting, kind of thing. And you know, really an atmosphere started to build, bit of momentum, and then the lads just put in a really, really good performance, you know, and we really fought back, made it 1-1, should have won the game. But I remember just coming out of that ground that night and thinking, we're going to go up here.
Yeah.
You know, because we're playing Brentford, who actually almost went up themselves. Really good team. And I think at that moment, a previous Leeds team would have just bottled that game and gone on to lose 2 or 3-0. But the fact we came back from behind, that's when I really started to believe again. And you know, and then we went on a 5-game winning run before lockdown. Lockdown came about, and then we won 7 of the last 9 and drew the other 1. So we finished the season. That was a turning point in our season. That was my last away day, and for that reason, that is one that really makes you just think, wow, kind of thing. And
yeah,
you know, and I kind of go back to that game more. You know, it's the feeling of that. You know what? Nothing's going to stop us this season. And I just remember coming out. It's really difficult to explain, but coming out of the ground.
Yeah, you seem to have that mentality that even not playing well, you still win. Yeah.
Because I remember the season before, I think the big thing to talk about as well, the season before I went to Brentford, and our automatic promotion hopes ended on, I think it was Easter Monday at Brentford away.
Right.
Travelled all the way down to London, travelled all the way back, actually had to stay over in Leeds, and then travelled back into Southport because I had to work the next morning. And I just remember thinking that whole trip back, you know, 5-6 hours, and thinking, and I thought the same thing was happening again, and then it just didn't. And then you kind of think it's just weird how things like that, you know, little turning points. And that's what it's always been like at Leeds. You have little turning points at some point, and that was it really. But yeah, obviously the whole build up to it, I think obviously we did it quite comfortably in the end. Obviously by 10 points, it wasn't quite as comfortable as what 10 points would suggest, but you know, we finished the season with 6 wins on the run, and there was moments where we kind of threatened to fall away, but we never really felt like we were falling away after lockdown, to be honest, mate. I've always felt confident we're going to do it. And obviously that final whistle was the relief, but it was kind of like, you know, it wasn't like our previous promotion from League One where it was kind of like up and down, 50-50, 50-50, and kind of like a last minute Jermaine Beckford winner got us promoted. It was kind of a real different emotion. And that day, I was on the pitch this day. I was in my living room celebrating. It is quite unique from that sense. You think obviously Liverpool, even for you guys, winning the title after 30 years, you just don't dream of it. You don't dream of it being in those kind of circumstances where you're not there. Maybe you just don't imagine not being there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You think if you told me
a different way, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. If you had told me at the start of the season, all the way back in August 2019, we'll get promoted this season in those circumstances. If you had told me that in August, I think, well, that sounds awful. That weird way, because of what happened, around the world, and obviously the way we were all communicating with each other. It was just that. It's just like almost unique in that sense that we'll never experience something like that ever again, kind of thing. We hope we won't, and you just take it away from that. Really, if you're looking at the positives from it, it was truly unique in that sense.
Well, I think I can talk on behalf of all the teams in the Premier League and say I think it's great to have Leeds back. A massive club back where they belong, and one day hopefully we can do Leeds away and Leeds can stay in the league. And I think every football team in the Premier League and every fan want to do Leeds away. So finally, the podcast is centered around Go in the Match. So of every podcast we're doing, I want to end by asking, what are your top 3 favorite matches you've been to? So it doesn't have to be based on the 90 minutes itself, but it can be something that happened during the day or for whatever reason.
Okay, well, I think to start off with, I've got to have that Brentford game in there. I think I've got to have that Brentford game because it was such a crucial game. And, I love going to Brentford away. It's the first time I've actually seen us get anything there. And, I know a lot of my friends actually work at Brentford. So it was kind of special in that sense. So that'd have to be up there. That's in terms of the away day. Second, it's quite tough this. I'd probably have to say Marcelo Bielsa's first game in charge of Leeds, to be honest. I think beating Stoke 3-1, it was just kind of how... There was something about that game, Mike, when you turn up, first day of the season.
Yeah.
Everything's been awful before it. Pre-season's not been particularly good, but you just have that weird sense of optimism. It was just that. There was no logic behind it. We were playing Stoke, who'd just come down from the Premier League. They had people like, obviously, Premier League quality players kind of in the team. And, you compared the two teams on the day and you thought, there's not a single Leeds player that gets in that Stoke team, if you know what I mean, from that sense. But just that weird sense of optimism. The ground's full. Marcelo Bielsa's first game, that sense of the unknown, the sense of a new journey kind of thing. And, from the first minute of that game, honestly, that first half, I thought, I've not seen Leeds play this well in 16, 17 years. Yeah. And that's in the first game. And obviously there's games after that. But the fact it was the first game, to play like that, go 2-0 up, I think, in the first 20 minutes, absolutely hammer Stoke. We probably should have won. I think we won 3-1. But we could have won 6-1, to be honest, 7-1. And it was just such a dominant performance. When you're pretty much seeing on the pitch the same team of players that finished like 13th and 14th in the Championship and was nothing in the Championship kind of thing. And that was kind of unique from that sense. And there was it reignited the fire kind of thing in terms of belief on the pitch. And that was a special day. I think, obviously, atmosphere-wise, it was really good on the day as well. I think lastly, I've got to go for Leeds beating Bristol Rovers, final day of League One, to get out of League One. And that was kind of the first time I've seen Leeds either win a trophy, get promoted, or actually having a celebration about Leeds kind of thing after the game. Having a season that's meant something kind of thing. And we've actually achieved something tangible. And it was special from that sense, to be honest, mate. And, obviously that game, wow. I mean, that game, it's just like, all we needed was to match. Well, on the day, a lot of people won't be aware of that, the story behind the game, but it was Jermaine Beckford who went to play on for Everton. Yeah. Obviously quite well respected in the media now. Actually turned out to be quite a close family friend now. Really, really lovely fellow was Jermaine.
All right.
But at the time, it's weird how things turn out. This is like in the last 10 years. It's just so strange how things work out. But we knew this was Jermaine Beckford's last ever game for Leeds. We'd been touted for the Premier League. Premier League clubs had come in for him for every transfer window for 3 years straight, kind of thing. But finally, his contracts have run out, and he's pretty much almost certain he was leaving the club. So he was made captain for the day, and we knew it was probably his last game for Leeds United, unless we went into the playoffs, etc., etc. I went into the game, started like a house on fire. We knew we'd have to win the game, realistically, because there's 4 teams chasing us. One of them's going to win, kind of thing.
Yeah.
The table changed. I kid you not, I think the table changed 13 times, I think it was. It might be more than that on the final day. And all 4 teams were in the promotion place at one point during the day.
Really?
So that kind of sums it up. It's truly unique. I don't think in any of the football leagues, Championship, League One, League Two, non-league, I think you've ever seen a final day in terms of promotion race that dramatic. And obviously Ellen Road's full. I don't think the players have been that used to a full Ellen Road, if you know what I mean. I think obviously, like a full Ellen Road and actually going into a game and there's something on it kind of thing. I don't think a lot of the players were used to it. We started really well. We went down to 10 men. A fella called Max Gradle, who I mentioned before in terms of heroes, got sent off, stamps on another player. I can laugh about it now. We won't go off the pitch. We're down to 10 men before half time. It's 0-0. So you're kind of thinking at half time, it's happening again. It's happening again, kind of thing. We went 1 down within 2 minutes of the second half. And you're kind of thinking, that's it then. You know what I mean? That's it, kind of thing. It was just like you could hear a pin drop in the stadium. And then the local lad comes on, makes it 1-1. Johnny Howson, absolute thunderbolt from 30 yards, top corner, 1-1. And then all of a sudden, Jermaine Beckford pops up and it's 2-1. And we just had to hold on with 10 men and we did it. And then at that point, you kind of don't know what to do with yourself because Leeds United, for the first time in my life, have achieved something tangible. It's not something big. Leeds have won, Division 1 titles, FA Cups, UEFA Cups, etc., League Cups, proper trophies kind of thing. But this was kind of like for the younger fans, the first tangible kind of achievement, somewhere where you could look back on the season and say, we had the pitch invasion, we did this, we did that. Real tangible achievement. It was just such a special season because we beat Man United away, we drew to Tottenham in the FA Cup, we had a really good game at home to Liverpool as well, which I think Liverpool won 1-0, but we played really well, League One against a Premier League club.
Yeah.
It was just a really special season from that sense. We achieved a lot, in terms of even outside the league. I think we played 70 games that season, I think it was. It was something mad like that. It might not have quite been 70, but it was crazy, for a team that's playing Tuesday, Saturday, and just to finish the season off with 10 men and just still have fire in our bellies and just to get over the line. And it was just typical Leeds fashion and just the atmosphere on that day, unbelievable. I can still remember before kick-off, Ken Bates' tradition before every game on the last day of the season was to have an opera band singing on the Ellen Road pitch. Don't ask me why. But I do remember that. So you've got like a Pavarotti tribute acts there, just singing Nessun Dorma kind of thing. And you remember things like that, though. You think, this is dramatic now, just to make it more dramatic kind of thing. Thinking, you kind of thinking, blimey, this is a proper game of football. And obviously going onto the pitch and thinking, you know what? It's not all awful supporting Leeds in terms of success on the pitch, and that was a special moment. And look, obviously I picked out 3 games there in terms of purely on the pitch, but I think in terms of atmosphere, I think every game's consistently, the atmosphere is spot on. There's nothing really that particularly stands out because it's not a case of one week it's quiet, the next week it's bouncing. I think every week it's bouncing in its own way. I think obviously the atmosphere is always spot on, home or away, and I can't really pick a game out for that sense, just for kind of like the day and, getting drunk and, all this and that. It'd have to be just those 3 games purely because of what it meant on the pitch.
So that's a fantastic way to finish the podcast. So just before you go, mate, just a massive thank you for giving it your time and coming on. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all, mate. No problem at all.
If you haven't already, please subscribe, follow and share. And of course, leave us a 5-star rating.